there are wonderful things to show. And in fact, at this show, we're launching a brand new product called Biosound Theater.
Okay.
Biosound Theater, we call it a sound bar. And if you want to see it as a sound bar, it's mounted on the outside of the booth. If you want to see it as a sound bar here, we have it as part of an integrated solution with a 77-inch G2 panel from LG with our sound bar Biosound Theater right below it on a very innovative screen mount that allows you to mount the screen without coupling it acoustically to the speaker, so we don't have vibrations disturbing the screen at all.
Okay.
Then we have it on a motorized floor stand. We have the ability to have either a 55, 65, or 77-inch screen size in this way by adding wings or reducing the size of the wing. So in this case, we got the 77, of course. And what I like to do is talk about the modularity and the possibility of putting in a Biosound Theater today and being able to add speakers over time.
Why a soundbar would be called theater?
Why would we call it a theater? Because it comes from the ancient Greek theatron, where you would go to experience, the magic of a live play or opera or who knows what. And
so
in this case,
by the way, it's more than a speaker.
It's more than a speaker. Okay. It is a full Dolby Atmos processor, Bang & Olufsen's True Image processing. So by itself, there's 12 drivers inside the cabinet. Outside, you can take a picture of the exploded view. We have 12 drivers that are producing 7 channels of output. So you have a 7.1.4 Dolby signal coming in, goes through the Atmos processing. We have outputs that are essentially 7 channels to match that by the soundbar itself. There's up-firing and side-firing channels. There's center channels. The center, in this case, you see there's a little ring of aluminum around the center speaker. It's a coaxial construction. The reason for this is that we want to have speech intelligibility, even if there's loud, explosions and things happening in a film. Sometimes you have a hard time hearing the speech and the dialogue. And a lot of times you turn the volume up because of that. So what we do here is we have them with the tweeter mounted directly in front of a 5 1/4-inch mid-range driver. So you get good speech intelligibility anywhere in the room, even with the explosions and things that you'll hear later. Then we have bass performance. We've got cabinet volume enough to fit 2 6.5-inch woofers inside the Biosound Theater itself. That will provide bass performance that you would miss in pretty much any other soundbar on the market. And the idea is that you might buy it as a soundbar and you'll be totally happy with that. I'll play a little demo, and I don't know how it's going to come through on your music here or on the system here, but if I play this demo with only the speaker here, and I'm playing at about 66,
What do we play?
you're going to hear full range of the audio with the instruments, the saxophone, the piano, the drum kit, the bass, and it's coming through only this speaker. Everybody coming into this room has said, is there a subwoofer? Well, normally in a theater system, there is a subwoofer. Normally, you'd have an LFE somewhere, the low frequency effect channel. It's in the recording. We don't have that speaker here, but what do? We mix it into the speakers that we have that are capable of producing the bass. So in this setup, we have the 2 large woofers, but the 12 speakers are actually all playing all the time. We're doing a lot of digital signal processing, of course, with the Atmos and with the True Image, but also with bass management. And the bass management, as we add more speakers, because there's a built-in AVR, that allows us to add 8 wired speakers, PowerLink cable, or 8 wireless with the WiSA standard. We call it wireless power, immaculate wireless sound. So you can have up to 16 additional channels on top of the 7 that are already here. And then as you add speakers, we know the bass handling characteristics of those. If they're wireless, we get the data immediately. If they're wired like our BLM50s, you tell it it's a BLM50 when you're setting it up in the app. Then it knows the bass handling characteristics of that speaker, and we can evenly distribute the bass throughout the room to the speakers that can handle what bass range they can handle, and we reduce bass modes and flatten out the bass response over the whole room so you don't have peaks and valleys where you're eating the bass. We also do phase compensation to make sure that one speaker is not eating the bass of the other. So you get a really great sound performance. You have a question?
Yes. Regarding the design of the Biosound theater, because Bang & Olufsen is a lot about design. What happened with the engineers? Did they ask for any special consideration regarding how big the speaker could be or not be?
Yes, of course. There's always a playful interaction between the engineers, the acoustic specialists, and the design team. Because the design team, of course, really the goal here was to take the sound performance of a complete surround system, which would be multiple speakers and things that you would have in your room, build them into a sound bar, and make it hide in plain sight in your home. So how do you do that? And how do we get the performance out of this? Well, to do that, the acoustic specialists would say we need to have some cabinet volume to recreate that bass. And the cabinet volume is done in a very clever way, because I mentioned two 6.5-inch drivers already. But we have a design here which is inspired, of all things, by a sailboat. And the sailboat has a keel down the middle. And in this case, if you come to the edge of the screen here, just come here. If you look down the edge, you can see that half of the volume is behind the screen. And in fact, we've got the up-firing driver here. There's sound coming out the back side and the front side. There's sound coming out the side here. But we have the keel basically taking half of the size of the speaker and putting it behind the screen so you don't even see it. Then when you're looking from an angle, you have a very slim profile.
Yes.
So it looks only 3 inches thick. And then the height, because the height we didn't want to be too tall either, it's like it's riding on a blade here, right? The blade of aluminum, which is masterfully crafted in Factory 5 in Struer. We have that, and then you have these 6.5-inch woofers. And it's like, how do I fit a 6.5-inch woofer into this cabinet? Well, they came up with a very clever way of doing it by mounting custom-made drive units at an angle so that we can fit a 6.5-inch driver in there. And then we got all the 12 drivers here have an individual amplifier driving them. Together, the output of this sound bar is 112 decibels by itself.
Show the Biolab 18 as a surround speakers.
Yeah, so
is this the perfect match for the theater?
you know, Jimmy, that's a fantastic question, because is it a perfect match? From a visual point of view, they have the silver finish with the special treatment that we do in Factory 5 on both the sound bar here on the bottom of the Biosound Theater. We have that, the wings, the floor stand, and the aluminum tower of the Biolab 18, the acoustic lens, the cone at the bottom, all processed in the same way, so it's a unified presentation. And the front cover is made from natural oak wood from Forest in Denmark, processed at a furniture manufacturer who's making high-end Danish furniture and making Bang & Olufsen lamellas, so that they all match. And if you want it to be a different color, we can have oak, light oak, dark oak. You have choices. You also have choices of the aluminum. Here we're showing the natural silver finish. You can also get a gold tone and a black anthracite. So they're all available. You can order them today. When we're going to add the speakers here, I talked about adding speakers incrementally. So let's say we start with a sound bar. A year from now, you're like, hey, I got a bonus. Let's spend the money on something fun. We'll buy a pair of Biolab 18s for the rear channel. Okay, what's going to happen there? Now we have the 7 channels here. We just added 2 new ones. We'll do a little new microphone calibration. The system does that automatically for you, really. You just have to initiate it.
Everybody's doing a home theater, needs a rack of equipment.
Yeah,
what happened here?
Yeah, you know, I worked for Bang & Olufsen so long, you forget about the things that we hide in plain sight.
Yes.
And everything in the room is what we have.
Because
all we have hidden here is the power cords.
Where is the rack?
The rack is not necessary here because
what is the controller?
The Biosound Theater has all the componentry, all the electronics, the microprocessor for the Dolby Atmos, for
like
the true image, the AVR is in there. the sound engine, which is the Mozart platform in this case, which is a streaming engine. So we have AirPlay, Chromecast, DLNA, Bluetooth, line input. These are on board, Bang & Olufsen Radio. All those things are there from the start. Then all the apps that exist on your video TV, that's your screen, connected with HDMI ARC and eARC into the sound center. We've got all these sources that are there already. We're playing the content from a thumb drive. Now that could be a cable box, that could be a Blu-ray player, it could be an Apple TV mounted on the back, literally on the back of the screen under a hidden compartment, so you don't have to see any wires, you don't have to see any mess.
And Dave, how many remote controls do you need to control so many devices?
One. The Beal Remote 1. That's why we call it the Beal Remote 1. Certainly you could use your Bang & Olufsen app also. But the Beal Remote 1, with this one, I can go in now and I can say I have my speakers and I've got the theater with the rear channel, or I've got the theater by itself, or I've got the full theater, which is my front speakers and rear speakers. You can name it any way you want. You might say that this is my dining setting, and I might even have the TV turned for that. But what I can do is just go in here and say I want, right now, the rear channel to be active. So I'm going to do that. And then I can go back and just play my movie clip, and I'll have a different sound experience with this than I did earlier, because we only had the speakers in the front. And I say only, like 12 speakers, 7 channels, digital processing wasn't enough. Now we're adding the rear channel.
Tell me something more.
Dave, thank you so much.
It's
It was really wonderful talking to you.
My pleasure always. It's great to see you, and thank you.
Thank you.